And I'm very excited about this panel. But I took some note because, of course, I learned about this moderation one day ago, probably less. But let's start with that. I'm here with Giacomo. Do you want to present yourself in another amazing way?
So I cannot top the underwear model stuff,
Exactly.
so I will just pass it over.
No, okay, so you can add at least the Plan B initiative.
Yeah, right.
Yeah,
I'm also, right,
you forget
you're right.
about that.
I'm also, yeah, forgot about that. My recent job is also director of the Plan B Network Initiative, which is an initiative we started in Lugano and is now going on all around the world to basically coordinate Bitcoin education all around the world and Bitcoin physical spaces, like you remember the Bitcoin embassies a long time ago. That's the idea, to basically coordinate Bitcoin hacker spaces and houses and other kind of spaces together with good education. We are merging with good Bitcoin initiatives like the Couver Bitcoin, pardon my French, and Summer of Bitcoin and Lugano Plan B Summer School and all this stuff together to do something very, very good. Thank you for remembering.
Yeah, and you decided to talk about your modeling instead of this. Okay, cool. And then we have Luke Dash here. I don't think you need any presentation, but I really like your bio on Twitter, where you say that you are Roman Catholic, you have 8 kids, and now you're CTO of Ocean. And also INTP, right? You had this in your bio. You want to add something else, Luke? Oh, I know you pretty well. Okay, that's good. We are talking later.
The hardest person to moderate in any panel ever is Luke.
Yeah, it's Luke.
I think you might have actually left out Bitcoin core developer.
Yeah, exactly. I want to be sure that... Amazing, you will listen to me. And then we have Bitcoin Mechanic. And Alex is... I also really love your bio on Twitter because you are now the CBO, Chief Boiling for Ocean, right? So what do you do for Ocean now?
Chief Boiling Officer.
Yeah, exactly. A very good definition.
Well, before Ocean came around, I called myself an ocean boiler for fun. Anyway, then the ocean pool came around and hired me, and I was like, I don't want to change my bio, so I'll just call myself
God, really?
Chief Boiling Officer, and then I get to say the same thing: Chief Boiling Officer at Ocean. So perfect.
And also I can add that you are an amazing musician. We play together, but I just want to mention that because I think it's important. And then we have Bob.
Thank you.
And then we have Bob. We met recently in South Carolina, right? Because you run Bitcoin mining there, barefoot mining. You want to add something about your operation there?
Sure. Well, so I am CEO of Barefoot Mining. So I'm an advocate, proponent for what I call horse class mining. I'll talk more about that tomorrow. But basically think about it as kind of the small to medium sized commercial mining and its importance to the Bitcoin ecosystem. And also a proud investor and member of the board of Ocean.
So basically all of these people were at the presentation of Ocean, the launch of Ocean Mining Pool last week in South Carolina. But 1 week has passed and many things happened. So it's not a replica of what we have talked about last week. Everything changed so far. So Giacomo, you addressed the topic of censorship before. I don't think I want to go too deep on that, but one brief things I want to clarify with you is about the fact that you talk about filtering is different, very different from censorship. And now we have not 25, the version 25. Do you think it is enough efficient to filter spam, or you have different opinions?
That's a good question. I hinted at that in the presentation. I actually agree pretty much with Luke and Mechanic, never discussed with Bob this, about the fact that this choice to use knots is completely legit, and the policy of knots, they are ethically sound and reasonable. And my strong point in my presentation was that conflating it with censorship is entirely dishonest or cruelous, or both. So I'm very strong opinionated on that point. This kind of filtering is legit, and it's not filtering. About the effectiveness, I don't share Luke's optimism, maybe, or mechanics optimism. I think that it will be. I think that ultimately the main point will be money. If this is not different from the argument that Eric Voskuil does about government censorship via empty block on the blockchain. If the money that the enemy puts on Bitcoin to create wrong blocks, so basically empty blocks or spam-filled blocks, is more than the money that the market is available to put for real blocks, then we will be eventually overpriced. So my optimism is not just that some technical filtering will solve the thing. I think that ultimately what will solve the thing is when the free market will actually invest in censorship resistance more than our enemy is currently investing in spam or DDoS attacks or censorship attacks. And so I think that filtering may actually not help so much. But I still defend it as a legit market choice. Is Luke's pool, and is Luke's node, and is Luke's implementation, and he makes a reasonable technical argument. And so everybody's freaking out for no reason, in my opinion. I'm not sure that that Knots will fix spam, because the spam that gets on chain anyway, we will still mine on top of it. So I don't think it will work, but I think it's a legit and honorable attempt. I don't know if you disagree, Luke.
Even if it doesn't entirely eliminate the spam, it's still confirming several times more legitimate transactions that would otherwise be forced to wait several blocks later.
That's a good point. Even just one pool that selects a real transaction over spam, it's including this transaction that if all the pools will be behaving the same way, they will never enter the chain. So I agree with that. It may not be effective into stopping the spam attack, but it will be effective at least into confirming some transaction every now and then, which is a good idea, I think.
And keep in mind the legitimate transactions are paying fees also, so the difference in fees is very negligible usually. Sometimes, for whatever reason, Knots actually comes out with more fees. But it's at worst negligible unless someone starts doing something nefarious. I think in the long run, other miners will see how good this is for Bitcoin and will slowly start to use these policies on their own, and the effect will be compounded just for the benefit of Bitcoin.
Even if it could go way worse before it gets better, because the spam attacker right now raised something like 8 million specifically to spam the chain. So we can expect some economic power for backing up the spam attack.
It's a possibility.
But I think it's also important to remember, and I'll speak as a miner right now, not as an Ocean guy, that the thing miners should be excited about with Ocean is not the here and now. Not that, I mean, what we're doing is wonderful. Where we're going is to empower the miners to create their own block templates. It's the number one reason I want to be involved with these guys. Is that's what I want to do. I want to, as Mechanical point out, I'm currently a hasher, and I want to be a miner. And this is the only path to that. And once I become a miner, and hopefully hundreds and thousands of you also become real miners, and we'll each make our own decision. These things will settle out. Some of it will be economic, some of it will be philosophical, but it doesn't matter. The network will run the way that it's supposed to run when we have diversity in block template creation.
Still speaking a little bit of censorship, are you guys censor now conjoint transaction? Because it seemed that like Whirlpool guys are not very happy. Is this a censorship or just filtering or just by chance happened?
Mechanics, you can take this.
Yes.
Right?
What do you mean by CoinJoin?
Well, I mean, I'm just quoting people on Twitter, X, or whatever.
Well, I think I disagree with you on this before. I mean, I was speaking with Max about it. CoinJoin is any transaction with more than one input, which are we filtering out transactions with more than one input?
No, and last I checked, plenty of coin joins are in our templates that we're trying to mine constantly.
Yeah, it's a sort of lack of, I'm not trying to be pedantic. Like, when people talk about coin joins, they're normally talking about privacy preserving, efforts where you have multiple parties use a Chaumian blinding process via a coordinator who can take a bunch of inputs, turn them into a bunch of outputs. You know that, even the coordinator themselves doesn't know a way to link the input and output. So it's a great privacy technique. There's loads of implementations of it. Two notable others being Wasabi Wallet and Join Market. Obviously, we love these things. Bitcoin is always a very challenging thing to make private, and this is a very clunky system. And Adam Gibson, the creator of Join Market, has this CoinJoin XT thing that would be super cool, and it looks much more like a normal transaction. But anyway, for whatever reason, Samurai Wallet came around yesterday and were like, "You're censoring our Whirlpool transactions," and obviously they got caught in the spam filter because they put a bunch of stuff in the op return. 46 bytes they use, and we don't have anything above 42. So we caught it, and the whole thing was phrased as like we've targeted them and we've made a specific new policy to block these things. In reality, we didn't even remember these guys existed until they started complaining on Twitter. And we're like, "You guys use 46 bytes in op return? Why?" And they're like, "Why are you censoring us?" And we're like, "Oh, okay." So it's been annoying dealing with that, but we've made some good faith efforts to try and be like, okay, well, we genuinely don't want this stuff not in the chain. We want CoinJoins in there. All the other implementations are going in fine. This one isn't. It wasn't intentional. So it remains to be seen. I think we have a phone call with them later. I think that's going to be interesting.
And hopefully we can help them fix their stuff so that works.
Yeah, we hope that we can help them figure out how to do it without having to put a bunch of stuff in op return, and then no one needs to change anything else.
So what do they put in the opt return? I don't get.
So it's, as far as I know, if Shinobi's to be, is treated as reliable, I know they don't like him, but I'm pretty sure he's been accurate here, which is, with a lot of CoinJoin implementations, I think with Wasabi they do this as well. The first time you do the CoinJoin, it costs money, and then if you go on for future rounds, it's free, or if you're below a certain... So they're keeping in the op return data about who's already joined, so it's free as you go down. There are obviously other ways to do this, like a private database. I don't know why it needs to be an op return, but they sent us a long explanation, and I haven't actually read it yet, so I'll decline to comment further.
No, I want to make sure that it was very brief, but I want to make sure everybody understood what Luke just said a second ago, which is we are going to try to help them.
Yeah.
So understand that this isn't about censorship. People that are trying to do legitimate things for the right reasons, we're going to try to help them.
And not even just legitimate. This is something that's, CoinJoins are very good for Bitcoin.
Yes.
It's something we'd want to encourage even.
I think that's one of the big things is we're embroiled in this at the moment. This stuff happens in the Bitcoin community. The way I look at it is I have complete confidence in the people that I'm on the stage with, that each of them in their heart wants to do the best thing for Bitcoin. I hope they feel that about me as well. And so we are going to disagree on certain things sometimes. But we're doing it from the intention of what's best for Bitcoin. When you're working with somebody who doesn't want the best for Bitcoin, but then is complaining, that's where the problem comes in my mind. Because, as Luke said, we're going to try to help them. We'll try to find, if they're doing it for the right reason, then in most cases, everybody's going to try to help each other, right? But I encourage you all, look at the heart of the person that you have a conflict with and see, where are they coming from? If they're coming from a fiat, greed, Wall Street perspective, then yeah, proceed cautiously. But if they're coming from the right perspective, let's leave the toxicity aside.
It would be nice if people could assume good faith a bit more. Obviously, I don't understand how anyone can't have the heuristic of, if someone's making a decision that seems to be making their life very difficult, they must have a good reason to do it. Obviously, the spam filtering we're doing, it would be extremely a lot easier living life if we just didn't do it, right? Because we have to argue with trolls all day, every day. And you can argue that it's outrage marketing and it's kind of helpful in some things, but it's not what I want to be doing, sitting on Twitter all day, arguing with people about why we're doing a thing and how we're censoring and all this stuff. because we're not. There's a reason we're doing it, and any intellectually honest person is going to sit there and go, I know these guys. I know that they wouldn't do this if there wasn't a good reason for it. Let's reserve judgment and let's figure out why they're doing what they're doing before we join this pitchfork of just burn everything to the ground. There is definitely a good reason for it. Maybe we're even wrong, and I will genuinely engage in discussions with people that say, I see what you want to do. I think this is a better way of doing it, or I don't think it's going to be effective. I'm totally happy to listen to that, but it's not necessarily always approached that way, and I wish it was. So it will be helpful, and I actually hope that we'll transition to talking about some of the things we do that
Absolutely.
everyone actually likes.
Absolutely.
So let's do that.
I agree with you. So,
Oh, you got one.
I'm talking a little bit about the history of Eligius. That was the name of your project before Ocean, right? So you were the first advocating for the decentralization of the template production, right? And to switch into the from pools to miner. And what was the story behind that? You were thinking about that since what year? What's the story behind Eligius?
Legius wasn't originally pursuing a decentralized goal. That came maybe a year or two after I started it, but ultimately always has just been a hobby until Ocean.
Okay, so also I think that right now many people are talking about the implementation of Stratum V2, but they took a bunch of ideas from Eligius and from your thinking, right? I am correct in that?
Yes.
Okay.
I think it was 2013 when I came out with...
No, because right now many people are convinced that it's something, a new fix that should be implemented, something brand new, but it wasn't.
No, the specifications for GetBlock template had this design in mind from 2013, I believe it was, and it never fully got realized, and a lot of that was that nobody cared to use it. Miners didn't care at the time, and that may potentially be an issue going forward, which is why we've done some plans with Ocean to have a lower fee for miners that actually participate in making their own blocks.
So GetBlock template was Stratum V2 before it was cool.
Yeah, and there was multiple names throughout the whole process.
Okay, so which names? I'm curious.
After GetBlock template and before Stratum V2, I believe Matt
Hash.
had called it Better Hash.
Okay.
Better Hash, right.
Wow, nice. And so when Stratum V2? Why are you guys waiting at Ocean implementing Stratum V2? Why not now? Because there is a pool, maybe in demand pool, I don't remember the name, that already implemented Stratum V2 they are trying to implement. You are waiting for what exactly?
Well,
2 weeks?
2 weeks?
It's also modular, right? You can implement this bit, but not that bit. So, like, Brains has had, the encryption part of SV2 for ages. So,
Right.
I mean...
It's important to note that what we're interested in with Stratum V2 is miners making their own blocks. It's not enough to just use it for encryption or whatever. It has to be the full solution. As far as waiting, we're not really waiting. I've already started diving into it a little bit, but the goal was to get the pool back up and running before moving on to that. Just so that there's another solution out there that's actually making blocks that are good for Bitcoin.
So just a question about that. So all the current implementation in production of Stratum V2 are not doing the miner side block production yet, right? Even there was a code that Steve Lee from Spiral published, like, here's the code, is already working. Is that already doing the miner side template production or not yet?
I'm not sure yet.
Okay.
Okay, so I have a question for Bob. You touched the topic briefly. Why a mining farm now should join Ocean? Also, I remember during your presentation in South Carolina, you talk about the idea of your goal behind your mining farm is just doing the best for Bitcoin, because when you do the best for Bitcoin, you're also doing the best for your own project, for your own business. So Join Ocean is doing the best for Bitcoin and for your business. Why other miners should join the project?
Well, I think that we live in a world, let's set the state of the world today. We have 12 to 15 pools that are mining all the blocks. 5 to 6 of them are 90%, which means that we have 5 to 6 organizations making the block template decision. I'm not here to throw arrows at anybody, but let's just say that the scrutiny on the ocean blocks has not been applied to anybody else. And I think there are warts in all of them. But regardless, none of the companies we call mining companies, even the big ones, the Riots and the Clean Spark, and I mean this in no disrespect to them, but none of them are miners, just like Barefoot is not a miner. I mistakenly called my company Barefoot Mining, and now I regret it because it should have been Barefoot Hashing. I learned my lesson. But to try to stay true to my name, we will become a miner. But you mentioned my talk mirror, and one of the things that I'm driving toward, that I think every miner should be driving toward, is sovereignty. That you are not going to be sovereign in your mining operation unless, I call it the miner stack, and the stack would be energy production, ASICs, the chips, system production, operations, block template creation. If you don't have control across that stack, then you're not sovereign. And you're really in a position where you're beholden to somebody else in order to accomplish mining, unless you do that. So the goal for my company is to do that. And I think the most urgency right now is in the block template creation pool side. I think other miners, if they're really mining for the best for Bitcoin, if that is their objective, and they believe, as I do, that ultimately they'll get rewarded for that, low time preference behavior, right? It may not be the best thing on this block, whatever block 820,197, may or may not be the best thing to mine with Ocean on right now on that one. But I can tell you, over the next several 100,000 blocks, the best thing will be to be with Ocean, and the best thing for Bitcoin is for Ocean to be successful. Now, I'll say also, I sure hope another 8 or 10 pools spin up, maybe more. You know, we need that. There's probably a theoretical maximum. I think we've talked to some of these guys about it before, but you know, maybe there's somewhere between 1 and 200,000 is the maximum pools that you could ever expect to exist, just mathematically. Because if you don't ultimately get maybe 0.5% or so of the hash rate, the math just doesn't work well enough in terms of cash flow consistency. But you know, pool is Ocean is really the first major announcement in the pool world, in my mind, in a long time, and it's the first one really addressing this core problem. So I hope the rest of the mining community will respond. I can say, by the way, as the first company to commit hash rate to the pool, that it may just be really good luck, but man, we had a good week. I mean, it was a really good week for us. We got a lot of Bitcoin. So, you know, we found 2 blocks, and December is going to be a great month.
So, is there? I don't know if this is something that can be addressed in public or not, but just feel free to refuse to answer. Is it true that these very lucky blocks were both found in your own hydro facility, or was like misinterpreted?
The first one was found by my.
So the
stuff.
first block of Ocean was created in the place where we were launching Ocean.
Oh no, it was found in by my hashers, but unfortunately it wasn't in South Carolina.
Not in the, okay, that would be so. Yeah. That would have been so epic.
I know, but I mean, I think God smiled upon us as it is. And by the way, that's one of the coolest things. It doesn't really mean anything in the long run. I actually knew, like, I was thrilled, didn't even sleep for the next day, when I found out that one of our systems mined the block. I've been participating in this market since 2017. It's the first time that in all my hashing power, I knew that I actually did something.
You found a block.
I found a block, you know, and you know, that's. I mean, that's amazing, right? That's amazing to know that. But it's pretty simple, but no other pools provide that information.
Yeah, we were talking about it, and I was just genuinely taken off guard by how much fun this brought back to mining. Like, when everything's behind the black box and you're just rented hash rate, you're leaving your machines around and you're printing sats and it goes up and you withdraw it. And now, like, we got the entire Bitcoin community watching. And like, when we found the second block, I just tweeted, "What?" And like, everyone liked it. Like, everyone cares again, which was my whole critique of the standard payout model now for pools, which is FPPS, which is defined by don't worry about the Bitcoin network. Like, we will find blocks, but we will just pay you regardless of what happens. And everyone goes, "Oh, who cares about Bitcoin? Like, I'm printing sats." And like, with our pool again, like, a lot of people were nervous and critical of it because it's not that kind of model. We don't pay you. Bitcoin pays you. So we don't act as an intermediary. This is good for every reason, except some people get nervous about cash flow because it's random when you find blocks, as opposed to, you know, a guaranteed payment from someone that is going to take off the top as a result of providing that service to you. But it wasn't just us, right? It wasn't just like the half an exahash that we have mining with us. It was everyone. The entire Bitcoin community was just like, I can't believe it. People saying they're going to convert to Catholicism. Like, it happened.
It's definitely a sign at this point. Come on. So what you guys were expecting, I mean, not the 2 blocks, of course, but the hash rate, the growth of the hash rate is going better or worse than you were expecting. And also all the attention and the criticism was something expected or really still surprising you in a week?
No, I'll touch on that because this decision to filter out according with NOT's policies instead of core was basically obvious to us all from the beginning, so much so that it never really came up. And this was an upsetting characterization of what happened here, and it was one because it caught you off guard, let's be honest. And I didn't want that to happen, but it's ultimately something we're not trying to hide. We couldn't hide it anyway. It's something we're proud of doing, and it didn't come up, and it wasn't a part of the launch. And this was a thing that people criticized us for. But at the end of the day, it's transparent. The block template was up there for everyone to see before we even found a block, and the knowledge that we were going to filter as we would. The minute people asked, we said, yes, we're definitely going to do that. And then there was more confusion because people said, well, you don't seem to be because of the template. And we went, yeah, we just haven't put NOT's 25.
Yeah, it wasn't ready for the launch. People would have complained we were false advertising if we had said that.
Yeah, I mean, for every reason, people feel misled and annoyed, and that was... There's definitely culpability there. I will definitely take some culpability for not thinking ahead and realizing it would come across that way. But at the same time, nobody accidentally mined a block that caught them by surprise that said, there's no inscriptions in here, you lied to us. This, first off, that was never our intention, but also that didn't end up happening. We've already found 2 blocks and both of them didn't have that filter. So the filter's on now. If you really don't like it, of course, you're not having to contribute your hash to it. You're not obliged to. But it's very well established that is what we're doing. So,
but let me stress this point a little bit more. Even before miner-side block production, which, as Bob said, is the main point of everything, it is the real goal. But even now, all this debate happened looking at the next block template. So people were looking, oh, watch this. From the template that Ocean is publishing, I see that they are not including this transaction that is present in core. Why? And then the response, oh, because we're using NOT. Oh my God, so you will filter out inscription. Well, yes, of course, we use NOT. Oh my God, that's terrible. But then somebody else, look guys, they are not really because they're using version 23. So some of them are in and some are out. So all the discussion happened before the block was mined. And every hasher, they're still not miners because they don't run nodes, they do not. So just to be sure, how many of you really understand, feel comfortable with this distinction between the pool producing the template and the miner producing the template? Raise your hand if you completely understand that, because otherwise...
there's...
Okay, let's do like a small step back. So how does, do you allow that, like, 2 minutes of...
Yeah, go for it.
I do want to point out...
Be the one allowing that.
You're the moderator, not there. So, okay.
I do want to point out, though, that the arguments and stuff, the trolling about this all actually started before we were even doing the filtering, because we had told people, frankly, yeah, it's going to be filtered.
Yeah, but the reason they knew we were not doing
No, but we were still. We didn't have the filters yet.
Exactly,
It was just,
and in the block it was evident, right? So so when we discuss about F2 pool, Luxor, what we discuss is, look, this block that was already mined and it's already done, and you already contributed your work to, this has these characteristics. With Ocean, all the debate is, look, this block that is going to happen, and you can choose to direct your effort toward it or not. This will have this characteristic. This is already a good change, a very critical change in direction.
Yeah, I'll jump on it because, like, this is the thing with Stratum V2 is there was just so much low-hanging fruit for stuff we could fix today that would make mining way better than it already is without needing that. And it's kind of, we grabbed it all. So the transparent block template thing, this was great to do for the reasons you just said. And another pool already decided to start doing that. So this is in line with the whole goal of the company. It's just make Bitcoin better. Like, it doesn't really necessarily matter so much about the company more than it does just about busting the system wide open. So as you said, you got 5 or 6 entities that are, constructing 90% of templates.
90, yeah.
Right, so what that means is 5 or 6 people are deciding what goes in blocks, and they are getting all newly mined Bitcoins themselves. So everything newly mined is going through this tiny funnel. With our second block, not the first one because we messed that one up, but the second block, we had 16 payouts in that, and those were our biggest miners. They are not their own pool, so instead of it being this number that's 5 or 6, that number is now 5 or 6 plus 16. So you're looking at 21, 22, which is there's a dramatic improvement in distribution of newly generated coins, and it's relevant. And that was easy to do. You can always have done that. You have to work within the limitations of, firmware and broken Bitmain stuff. But, this is another element of just, hey, we can do this. We can make block templates transparent. We can pay out multiple people from the Coinbase or in the Coinbase transaction. And, there's other things you can do too.
Yeah, let me try to clarify for everybody who is a little bit disoriented by the discussion what we're discussing about in 2 minutes. So when you mine, you can run your node, create your candidate block in your node, and try to hash it to see if you win. You will win eventually, but it will take on average more than twice the time of your life probably. So that's not nice because you have to pay the rent first. So what you do is instead of mining alone, you mine with 100 other people, and then you divide the reward. So it's 100 times more likely that you will find a block, and then you share it among 100 people. That can be done with one central party that coordinates everything, and the central party doesn't have to decide which is the block, how the block is done. That's not necessary. The central party should just enforce the fair payment, the fair sharing of the payment, the pooling of the payment. But there is no reason for the central party to decide what goes in this block, if this block is signaling for a soft fork or not, if this block is empty or not, if this block is OFAC compliant or not, if this block has inscriptions or not. That is not a decision that the pool must take. But out of laziness, because we didn't have this new technological idea back then, the ecosystem moved toward a situation in which these very few pools they don't just enforce payment distribution, but they actually take over the construction of the block. What Ocean does already now is, yes, we do the construction, but you can see that before you mine, not after. So at least you can see what you're working to. And then the main goal of Ocean is to get to a point in which you, as a miner, you really become a miner and you build your block however you want. And then we, as a pool, we just enforce fair payment of the pooled resource. This is a complete change of philosophy. And this is what is most important. Not really what we are putting in a block, but the fact that we are moving the responsibility for the block from the pool to the hashers that now, as Bob said, can become miners, because now they are not. They are not miners. They are not discovering Bitcoin blocks. They are just blindly hashing whatever the pool is sending them. So they're, it's a sweatshop of blindfolded people just just hashing stuff they cannot see. With Ocean, at least they can take off the blindfold and they can watch what they are working on. So they can even stop. They can say, oh my God, you are censoring. I'm not working there anymore. Good. At least you're watching what you're doing. And the next step is you're not even watching. You are proposing directly from your side. So these technical terms that you heard, like miner side template production or a get block template, Stratum v2, this is the point. To move the responsibility away from the pool to the miners, which is a huge deal. And it's already happening with transparency, because at least you take out the blindfold.
And let's tie it back to the name of the conference, right? They're called Unconfiscatable. The fact that the miners are getting paid directly by Bitcoin themselves, at least the ones above a threshold, so starting with the ones who have the most to lose in this context, it definitely speaks to that. Like, if you're mining in a traditional pool, your money necessarily must sit with a third party and must be confiscatable for some time. We at least use, to the extent Bitcoin allows, a mechanism for you to be able to actually mine and then control the results of what you mine immediately. Once the coins exist, they are yours, which is so much better than what has been around up until now.
Yeah, and I can speak that it actually works, because, as you said, we've had 2 blocks, and in my case, by the way, I will say one of the interesting things about and one of the great transparency pieces is if you go to ocean.xyz, you can see a list of every miner in the pool and how much hash rate they have and how many shares they've generated. That's a wonderful transparency. And all you really know, because when you sign up, all you really have to do is your username is the Bitcoin address that you want your proceeds sent to. What we do, by the way, which I'll say here publicly, is that we don't put all of our hash rate in one address. And so we split it up. Actually, it's split up. I think we've got maybe 15 different addresses in there, all of different sizes. Part of it, by the way, is it's an interesting thing, a little sidelight, is I often find, would anybody here be offended if you walked up and you met somebody new and they said, how much Bitcoin do you have? Anybody ever have a? Of course.
Of course.
Well, I find it funny that miners are so overt often with how much hash rate they have, because I believe it's basically the same question, and so when you hear people out there, if you're a miner at a big scale or a small scale, don't tell people how much hash rate you have. That's almost the equivalent of saying how much Bitcoin you have. It's definitely the equivalent of how much Bitcoin you're generating, right? That's a simple mathematical calculation. So hide that shit. I mean, be a Bitcoiner, protect your sovereignty, protect your privacy, and don't ask people that question.
Yeah, this is always the price of transparency and greater responsibility. Well, it is that you have to take greater responsibility. That's the price of greater sovereignty, right? So the fact that you're mining essentially in a verifiable scheme where everyone can know everything else, and you can actually, we haven't even said this yet, you can verify the payout split. That isn't possible in any other context currently. You just have to trust that the pool decided to split the fees according to what you actually mined. And there's just no way to verify that. And with us, the Tides payout system means, yes, you can verify what you actually have. But again, the price of that is everything's in public for everyone to know. So that means if you need to operate privately, you're going to have to take that into consideration. And that's analogous to how Bitcoin itself works. If you want private transactions, be a Wall Street guy with a bank account, and no one's going to know what goes on except you and maybe some government people. But if you want Bitcoin, then all your transactions are in public for everyone to see, because that's the only way other people can verify that they have coins when they get them, right? That's how you get rid of a bank account. Everything has to be public. So by its transparent nature, Ocean makes everything public. So if you don't want everyone knowing how much hash rate you have, do what Bob does and break it up a little bit, for sure.
So just, it may not be obvious for everybody, but this pool is non-KYC, only based on permissionless creation of Bitcoin addresses. So the pool doesn't know who you are, where you're from, how many addresses you have. It does just know that this address contributed these shares of work. That's it. So there's totally no KYC, not even any possibility to do KYC, because you cannot even talk with this Bitcoin address unless you use Bitmessage or I don't know what. So there is not even an address to talk with miners or with hashers. It's completely pseudonymous. So that's also very cool compared to most other miners that are the mining pool that are entering this KYC hell.
Yeah. Let me stress it, because this is like Bitcoin again, right? If you pay Bitcoin to an address you don't own by mistake, there is no number you can call. There's nothing you can do about it, right? That's the price of freedom and sovereignty. Same with this address, because of course with this pool, because I've already had emails, one email so far of someone, oops, I accidentally mined to an address I don't control. Can you fix that for me? And I'd say, no, of course not. That's the price for permissionlessness. I have no way of knowing who you are or the fact that was you mining to it. So stop mining to addresses you don't control. This is not mummy and daddy pool that will come and fix it all for you. This is sovereign mining. So you can't do stuff like that. You're not going to be able to get away with it. And that's a feature, not a bug. Just like Bitcoin, it's a feature, not a bug.
Yeah, and also, I would add in the future with Lightning and non-custodial payout. You want to add this and talk about that a little bit more, Giacomo?
Well, I have to defer probably to Luke. That will.
Yeah, that's
so what
okay.
I know is so far as Lex said, the miners that are making more than some threshold get paid directly in the Coinbase. So when they are mining the block template includes in the Coinbase their own address that they can see. Of course, this doesn't scale to very small miners because there is just not enough space in the Coinbase transaction. Not just the space of the block itself is limited, but also the space of the Coinbase is even more limited by hardware firmware. So basically, it's hard to do a lot of splits. So instead of doing a lot of splits, there is one threshold which is around $400 or something, maybe a little bit more probably at this price. But anyway, there is a threshold under which, for now, you need to send all the money in one UTXO, and then you have to share the ownership of this UTXO somehow to the small hashers. The way it's done now is just to wait to a threshold, automatic threshold, and then you create the UTXO on chain. But this is, I think, where Lightning and other UTXO sharing technique can actually shine in the future. I don't know how much is ready yet, how much Luke feels comfortable yet we can do with Lightning. I think that overall we can do a lot of stuff. Or even if not with Lightning, maybe we can use something like this UTXO that is shared could be something like a Cashew Mint, a Xiaomi Mint, or some other things that makes censorship harder and makes privacy better. So I think there is a lot of research to be had in interaction with Lightning. I don't know how much of that you're already actively considering, and how much will happen in the future.
We have various plans, but I think it would take a whole talk to go through them all.
But you have to give that talk eventually.
Yeah, probably closer to when it's ready.
Legit.
But yes, we definitely have plans to enable Lightning.
So I don't know if that's possible, but if you have Lightning payouts, that's also something that no pool tried yet, which is very, very cool. One of the limitations of a payment from a mining pool is that the Coinbase has to be mature in 100 blocks. So for 100 blocks, you cannot spend it. But if you get paid directly into a Lightning channel, that's not easy to do. We discussed that a little bit. But if you can use Lightning immediately, then you can also spend before the 100 blocks, which would be very, very cool. But there are a lot of problems with that. The first of all is that you cannot predict the ID of the Coinbase, which is of course unpredictable. But anyway, I think it will be a very cool field of research.
Well, the idea is basically to have it so that people can use Lightning to buy the shares after you mined them.
For example.
And so by doing that, all the small miners' shares would be collected by these large liquidity providers, and they would much easier meet the threshold for just a regular on-chain.
So a small miner could basically get out immediately with Lightning from the share investment.
Right, even before a block has been found.
That's very cool.
Yeah, sure. Let's talk a bit, like, for anyone that maybe didn't get that. Basically, you have this problem, and this is the problem with P2Pool and any sort of more decentralized approach to Bitcoin mining, is what do you do with people that only mined a few sats? because it doesn't make sense for that to be a UTXO. They don't even want it because they wouldn't be able to spend it without the entire thing being a transaction fee. And this is only a problem that's going to get worse, right? Because the more Bitcoin grows, the more transaction fees are going to cost. So what do you do with small to medium-sized miners? Well, the best thing to do is essentially you gather them all up before the rewards are given, and instead of giving, 10,000 guys a few sats, you have someone give them all those sats preemptively inside Lightning channels, and then all of the payments are given as one big lump on-chain to the guy who paid everyone over Lightning. So this guy is essentially, he's a liquidity provider. He comes along and he finds these 10,000 tiny miners, and he says, all right, I've got 6 Bitcoin here. I'm going to buy up everything you guys are mining and sum it all into one huge UTXO. And this will operate as a functional marketplace where the small miners can sell everything they're doing at a slight discount, because then they're getting the massive benefit of not having to deal with the on-chain fees. So you mine, you get everything you would have mined on-chain inside Lightning immediately. Maybe you do that with a bit of a discount. Or you forfeit a little bit of your reward to be able to do that, but the benefit is obvious, right? There's a reason you'd pay for this. And the liquidity provider that turns everything into a giant UTXO, they get to increase their Bitcoin instead. They have to deal with a lot of probable complexity, but they have to maintain some Lightning infrastructure. But the point is, the future with Ocean, and this is in my opinion the most revolutionary part about it, because we're low on time here, but I'm getting kind of inspired to talk about it again now. I've been dealing with haters all week, and I'm just kind of absolutely dead by it. But this is the revolutionary part. Like the Stratum v2, the decentralized block template construction is great, and it's inspiring, and I'm glad that people are so enthused by it. But no one really talked about what do you do with small miners before, because where were we going to end up with that? Naturally, if we hadn't have done anything, all that would happen 5 years from now is every big FPPS mining pool would just also be a bank account where people just internally moved around sats, and even people that weren't miners would just have an account with Foundry or an account with Antpool, and you just send each other sats internally, because there's no way to handle these tiny UTXOs. So you have to leverage Lightning to do it. And this is a way to do it where, rather than crudely say, if you mine, the pool will send you sats that are just out of our own pocket, and again, we'll go and make ourselves whole with the network. Instead, we're saying, let's actually do it properly. Let's have a liquidity provider come along, and they act as a big miner buying up hash rate. They buy all of the work done by other miners. They turn it into one giant thing. Then the UTXO fees don't hurt anymore, and all of the small miners essentially mine directly into Lightning channels, and you basically bust the whole thing open again and stop it from rolling downhill into this horrible custodial model where pools all just turn into banks. So that to me is actually the most exciting part of it.
And as a nice side effect of this, you get people involved in Bitcoin mining who otherwise couldn't be, because they have too much heat or they have really terrible electric prices. They can get involved as a liquidity provider and have a part of the mining process.
Yep.
So to clarify, somebody with a lot of money, but without any hardware facility, could decide to enter this market, pay via Lightning all the small miners, and get in exchange their shares, so they can get the UTXO without having an ASIC at home. They just have money, and they provide the money to pay out the small miners via Lightning, and they get the UTXO, which is also decentralizing mining also beyond people that can actually buy and run some kind of, think about somebody in Cuba getting some ASICs there, cooling systems there. I mean, it's hard. Maybe you have some Bitcoin though, you can still mine indirectly through this market, which is cool.
Yeah, and I think it ties back together even to the block template creation. So one thing, as I've talked to a lot of Bitcoiners that I don't think a lot of people have put their heads around yet, is that block space itself is a commodity. In fact, you could argue that it is maybe a more scarce commodity than Bitcoin itself. Because if we look at a given time frame, let's talk about the year 2024, there will be approximately 53,500 blocks mined. There will be approximately 3,000 to 4,000 transactions in every one of those blocks. that means on the order of 200 million transactions will go through the system next year. As things sit right now, 5 or 6 people are going to decide what goes in those. What we're going to do is change that so hundreds or thousands of people can make that decision. But it's a very powerful position, I think one that comes with a lot of responsibility. But in essence, if you are somebody, let's say, that will possess access to 1% of the world's hash rate, it means that you're going to make the decision about 2 million of the transactions that will be part of it. And once block space is used, unlike Bitcoin, it's not reusable, right? It is gone forever. You know, we're at block, whatever we're at, 80, 2200. That one's done. That block space is, somebody paid for it. A miner, one of the pools found that block, and they own it. It's a very powerful position. And block space is not something that, you know, short of another block size war or a change in block time, there really isn't much to be done to change how much goes through that system. So I think thinking about it as a commodity and thinking about the power and responsibility that comes with being in the position of deciding what goes in those blocks is tremendous.
We run out of time almost perfectly. I wanted to have some time for question, but there's no time left, I guess. So if anybody has question, I can reach out to you guys, ask you directly. So I think we cover the major topics around there. And I can say personally, I'm even more bullish on the future on the Bitcoin mining. And thank you very much, guys, for this conversation, and looking forward for all this updated and everything going on with Ocean and other projects around Bitcoin mining. Thank you so much.